Hey everybody, welcome back to my coverage of the PogChamps 3 tournament. We're continuing to look at the Myth versus Sardoche match in Group A. This is the second game. Sardoche won the first game. He is the favorite to win this match, so Myth needs to come back and win this game to bring the match to an Armageddon tiebreaker. And as you can see from the thumbnail, Sardoche started off with the Grob opening G4. So very dubious opening by Sardoche. We actually saw Sardoche play this in a practice game before the match started. So we kind of had a suspicion that he might go for this, but we weren't sure if he was actually going to play it in the tournament match. So let's see if Myth can punish Sardoche for this very dubious opening, which is dubious because it's not controlling the center and it's weakening the king side. So it's just not a very good first move. Myth plays e5, which is not the most common move, but it is simply just controlling the center here. d5 is usually a more common move when facing the Grob, but e5 is completely fine as well. We have bishop g2, a very common second move by Grob players, and knight f6. And this knight f6 move by Myth is actually a huge mistake because with this pawn on g4, you can actually advance it to g5 and gain a tempo on this knight. Myth probably didn't see this because there's usually not a pawn on g4 in the opening. So Sardoche does see this. He plays g5, and now the knight has to move again. Unfortunately, the knight can't move to the d5 or e4 squares because the bishop covers those squares. Myth sees this, and instead he plays knight g4. However, this is just as bad because of the move h3 actually traps the knight. This pawn covers these two squares. The knight can't move here, obviously, and the knight can't take its own pawn. So back here, Myth actually needed to play knight g8. Knight g8 is actually the best move here. But this is just a really difficult move to see. And it's also a hard move to play psychologically, admitting that this knight f6 move was a mistake. So that's what Myth needed to play. But we have this h3 move by Sardoche, and Sardoche, his dubious opening has already paid off, and it looks like he's going to have a nice advantage out of the opening. So Myth recognizes that he's going to lose this knight. He could go for this knight takes f2. It's probably the best try. And after king takes f2 and queen takes g5, White's king is kind of exposed, and you've gotten 2 pawns for the piece. So that probably would have been a better variation than what Myth went for, which instead was queen takes g5. And now after h takes g4, you still get 2 pawns for the piece, but now White has this nice open h-file. They can gain a tempo on your queen with bishop h3, and White's going to castle queenside perfectly fine later in the game and be fine. However, this is not actually what Sardoche went for after queen takes g5. Sardoche did not take the knight on g4. Instead, he went for an intermezzo, sort of an in-between move. He played d4. And his idea is, my bishop's now attacking your queen. Maybe you'll see that my knight can, maybe Myth will think that his knight can move now, and he'll hang his queen. However, this is actually a huge blunder by Sardoche, because here, Myth can actually play knight to e3, and this kind of saves everything for Black. So here you're not really threatening to take this queen because the knight is pinned to Black's own queen. And this is also a discovered attack on this bishop here. So here the best continuation for both sides would be a sequence like bishop f3, knight takes d1, and after bishop takes g5 and knight takes b2, d takes e5. Black is going to be up a pawn here, and also White has a really terrible pawn structure, and it's going to be hard for their king to ever be safe because both the g and b pawns are missing. And d pawn, so it's going to be hard for White's king to find safety, and also Black is just up a pawn. So this is a good position for Black, and this is how Myth could have gained an advantage after this d4 blunder. However, this is a really tricky move to see, and Myth did not see it. Instead, he went for bishop b4 check. He said, I can check your king, and I can deal with my my hanging knight later. Whether he saw his queen was hanging here or not immediately, we may never know. But yeah, this bishop b4 check is another mistake because here Sardoche can simply play c3, blocking the check, and now counterattacking the bishop as well. So now black has 1, 2, 3 hanging pieces, and it's going to be hard for, it's actually impossible for black to save all of them. But it's just not good for black at all. And here, maybe Myth was paying attention to the fact that his bishop was attacked because he did not move his queen. He played bishop e7, which simply hangs the queen on move 7. Very tragic if you're Myth. So after bishop takes g5, Sardoche not interested in the hanging knight when there's a hanging queen. Bishop takes g5 and h takes g4. White is up a full queen, actually. So we'll see how Sardoche converts this, or maybe he blunders back and Myth can get back into the game. We'll just have to see. We have d5 and e4. So here you could take either pawn, but you're up a queen as white, so really anything is going to win. We have e4. c6, defending this pawn once, but technically it's attacked twice, so you can still take it, and you can also still take this e5 pawn here. Instead, we have bishop h3, kind of a weird move. I'm not actually exactly sure what Sardoche was thinking with this bishop h3 move. But anyway, Myth castles. We have knight f3, developing a piece, gaining a tempo on this bishop, and attacking this pawn one more time. We have bishop f6, and now knight takes e5. We have bishop h4 and queen b3. I'm not sure what was up with this bishop h4 move, but it's kind of hard to do anything here as Myth, though you should still fall back on chess principles, develop your pieces as well as you can. So bishop h4 was probably not the best move just for that reason. But once again, anything you play here as Myth is going to be losing. And also with this queen b6 move, once again, we have this queen pressuring this b pawn like we've seen in some other PogChamps games. When this queen comes to the b file and pressures this b pawn, it's, for some reason, beginners miss this tactic very often, where they miss that if they move their bishop, then their b pawn will hang. And I also used to miss this tactic a lot when I was a beginner. So I don't know what it is, but beginners just miss this tactic a lot. And Myth also missed this tactic. He played bishop e6, so he was probably just trying to get developed. He didn't want to block his bishop with his knight first, and this did hang the b7 pawn, which also traps the rook, and the knight can't even move anywhere to save the rook. So Myth tried to save his rook with knight d7, but now this hangs the knight. Knight takes d7, bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, and so now what is the material? Yeah, white is up a queen and a knight. So if it wasn't already winning for white, now it's super winning for white. We have rook fd8. Here, white is just up so much material. You could even sack the queen for a rook just to simplify things, but Sardoche keeps it simple, takes the free pawn, queen takes c6. We have rook ac8 gaining another tempo on that queen, trying to get Myth trying to get his pieces into the game. We have queen a4, rook c4, attacking that queen once again, but this allows Sardoche to pick up another pawn. Queen takes a7. We have rook cc8, rook back to c8, connecting his rooks once again. But this allows the tricky move by Sardoche, which is g5, and now this is unleashing this discovered attack on the rook when you moved it to c8 here. So we'll see if Myth takes this g5 pawn and misses that his rook is hanging. He doesn't actually take the g5 pawn with his bishop, but he also doesn't move his rook. Instead, he goes for d cross e4, and this is just terrible because now after bishop takes c8, even if you take this bishop, now you're also losing your bishop on h4. So d cross e4 was even worse than a move like bishop takes g5. But anyway, we have rook takes c8, and Sardoche, once again, keeping it clean, he simply takes that rook on h4. He's playing extremely well in these past two games, so we'll see if he can keep it up with the rest of the tournament. I'm going to assume that he is going to win this game. That would be my prediction at this point anyway. We have h6 and g cross h6 just ripping open Myth's kingside. Rook e8, and I think at this point is when Myth started calling for the FBI and the NSA, Secret Service, Men in Black. He was sort of yelling some antics about how much he was losing this game, and it was pretty funny. He was just being a character, like he always is. We have h7 check from Sardoche, and from Myth we have king f8, which this just leads to the immediate checkmate in one with h8 equals queen. You could even promote to a rook if you want to be flashy, but that might be a little unsportsmanlike. Queen is the safe bet. Even if the rook came to h8, it's still going to be checkmate very soon after queen takes f7 and rook c8, for example. After rook g4, there's going to be this mate threat on g7, and you can't stop it. If you try to defend it with the rook, it's simply queen takes rook, and that's checkmate. So the only thing black can do is delay checkmate by one more move by advancing the pawn, but once the rook takes the pawn, there's nothing you can do. It's going to be checkmate on the next move. So yeah, this was the final position, and Sardoche wins the match 2-0 over Myth. And here are the standings for the Group A so far. So Sardoche and Myth have played 2 matches so far. Benji Fish and Nico have only played 1 match so far, but they're going to be playing another match very soon. I think, not actually sure when, but whenever it is, I'm going to cover it. I don't think I have anything else to say about this match or this game, but thank you for watching. Be sure to check out my PogChamps 3 playlist if you're interested in more PogChamps games, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more chess videos. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.